Do it again. I have to press record for each and every one of the little questions so they don't get too big. Okay, so far in this problem here, this is question number 3, looking at box and whisker plots, and it's really important that you know all the parts of your box and whisker plot. So you need to know the minimum, the lower quartile, the median, the upper quartile, and the upper quartile is sometimes referred to as Q3. And the final thing on your box and whisker plot, the thing at the top end, is the maximum score, the highest score. Okay, so they're the parts. You need to know them quite well in order to answer these type of questions. Other types of things that a question might ask is find the interquartile range. Okay, so the interquartile range, IQR, is equal to the upper quartile, take away the lower quartile. So it's the Q3 value, take away Q1. And something quite basic, but question might ask you what's the range of some numbers. So the range is equal to the maximum score, take away the minimum score. Okay, so that's like the real basics, and most of you hopefully will understand all of that stuff is pretty good. But this one you might not know about. Okay, so it doesn't come up in this particular question, but it did come up in last year's paper. It's to do with outliers. Okay, so the word, so I'm just going to write number 2, do it down here. Outliers. Okay, basically an outlier, if you don't already know this, is a score that doesn't really belong with the rest of the data. It's a loner score, it's by itself, it's like way off into the distance, either in the left-hand side of your graph over here somewhere, or something way over here. And your box and whisker plot might have, you know, a really high maximum or a really long tail or something like that, and that's what's considered an outlier. But to be specific, with box and whisker plots, there's actually a numerical way of calculating whether a score is an outlier or not. Okay, and this numerical measure is this. The way you can work out if a score is an outlier or not is it has to be 1.5 times the interquartile range, either above or below Q3 or Q1 respectively. Okay, so what that basically means is, if I change to a different colour, go green, to find out if a score is an outlier or not, okay, what we do is we first of all work out the interquartile range, which is the upper quartile value, so in this case it's 12, and take away the lower quartile value, in this case it's 8, so the interquartile range in this case would be 4, IQR equals 4, and then what we do is we multiply that by 1.5, so 4 times 1.5 just so happens to be 6, and we're testing to see if a score is 6 units above the upper quartile. So if the upper quartile is 12, if a score was, say, 18 or higher, then that would be considered an outlier. And then at the bottom end, if a score was, 8 take away 6, 2, so if a score was less than 2, then that would be considered an outlier as well. So that's something to take into consideration. That's something fairly important. So an outlier is 1.5 times the interquartile range above or below the upper quartile or the lower quartile. And the last little thing I need to write in our notes for this question is, whenever you get a box and whisker question, never mention the words mean or standard deviation. On a box and whisker plot, they are nowhere to be seen. So if the question says comment on the distribution or something like that, don't mention the words mean or standard deviation, because the marker will look at your paper and go, this person knows nothing. Okay, so be very careful. Only mention things like medians, minimums, these things up here, the parts of your graph. Okay, they're the things you can look at, but not mean or standard deviation. They're not mentioned in a box and whisker plot. Okay. So that's our notes, and so hopefully from that we'll be able to understand this question a bit better, and we will have a go at trying to solve it. So I'm just going to exit my drawing. All that stuff's going to disappear, and what we need to do now is, using the clues from the problem, so using the graph itself and the set of scores that I was mentioned up here, so using these scores, we need to solve for the values A, B, C and D, and then for part B, state the mode of the set of scores. So again, same with question number 1, I'm going to give you guys a little bit of time to see if you can figure things out, like a minute or so, and then I'll come in and do the solution for it, okay?